Welcome to the first of tonight's zombie double bill, the rip-roaring horror farce Evil Dead 2, appropriately subtitled Dead by Dawn, which follows in the footsteps of one of the most notorious shockers of recent years. Back in the early 80s, Sam Raimi's seminal low-budget romp The Evil Dead got caught up in what became known as the video nasty scare, a national witch hunt against horror tapes fueled by the tabloids and orchestrated by the Director of Public Prosecutions, who produced a list of around 60 video titles which the police were advised were impoundable. Now, despite significant court victories, which actually got it removed from that list, The Evil Dead was tainted with the stigma of obscenity and only resurfaced on video years later, minus a minute of cuts in addition to the 40 seconds already slashed out of it for its UK cinema release. According to Chief Censor James Furman, the problem with The Evil Dead was partly that the name of the game was excess and it was just too excessive, and partly that under the terms of the 1984 Video Recordings Act, the BBFC were now duty-bound to produce a version of The Evil Dead that was significantly different from the one which had gotten into trouble before the VRA was in place. In the meantime, Sam Raimi got on with creating his own significantly different version of The Evil Dead, namely Evil Dead 2, which is less a sequel than a remake, shot with more money, more jokes and more ambitiously entertaining special effects, but using essentially the same spam in a cabin scenario as before. When it came to classifying Evil Dead 2, the British censors were still a little bit twitchy, cutting a couple of seconds of head-kicking fun from the film and video versions, but generally treating the sequel with far more respect and indeed affection than its savagely dismembered predecessor. So sit back and enjoy the comic shocker Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn in nearly all its gory glory, and prepare to discover that there are few things funnier than being scared out of your skin.
Legend has it that it was written by the Dark One.
The second course on tonight's censored double bill is another cause célèbre from the era of the video nasty. European horror director Lucio Fulci has long been a bête noire of the British censors, who outlawed his infamous atrocity The New York Ripper, and who just a couple of weeks ago officially banned his penultimate film A Cat in the Brain. Fulci's most celebrated work, Zombie Flesh Eaters, first hit British cinemas in the early 80s, minus around a minute and a half of cuts, which the BBFC had extracted to make it acceptable. But when the then unregulated video market started to take off in the UK, somebody had the smart idea of releasing the stronger uncut version of the movie onto tape, which was fine until the DPP got wind of it and that stronger version went the way of all flesh. Now in the 90s, and under the terms of the Video Recordings Act, which regulates all video, laser and DVD releases in the UK, Zombie Flesh Eaters is back in its BBFC-approved version, featuring just as many zombies, but a little less flesh-eating, and crucially, a spike of wood scratching the surface of somebody's eyeball, but not actually puncturing it, about which you may feel relieved. Otherwise, there's all the weird atmosphere and strange exotic ambience which made Fulci a legend among horror fans, with Sergio Salvati's haunting cinematography presented as it should be in disorientating widescreen. Listen out too for Fabio Frizzi and Giorgio Tucci's skin-crawling score, which perfectly embodies the sound of European exploitation cinema, simultaneously cheap and extravagant, as silky as it is sleazy. And as you watch, cast your mind back to that strange time at the beginning of the 80s, before Graham Bright came along and spoiled all the fun, when dealing in videos was considered only one step better than dealing in drugs.